Hi, this is Sam Lagana with the Los Angeles Rams. Whose house? You're listening to the Los Angeles Rams UK podcast. Undenied worldwide. The Los Angeles Rams. It doesn't get any better than this. Let's go Rams!
Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the LA Rams UK podcast, episode 108. Nothing to whine about. I'm John, and joining me, as always, is Andy. Andy, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Again, nothing to whine about this week, I suppose, Just a nice week.
Yeah.
And, obviously, other games to look forward to coming up, but we'll discuss that during the pod.
Yep. So obviously we're here to go over the final week of the regular season win over the San Francisco Winebags, which saw the Rams come out 21-20 winners. Andy, actually, sorry. First, before and there'll be context to why. Can I just check, Andy? Am I allowed to wear this jersey anymore, or are we boycotting it?
I don't know. I think you're supporting the enemy there now, aren't you?
I better check, before I continue the podcast in case I need to go get changed.
Yeah, I think you need to get that off and get changed.
Let's burn it, I guess. No.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later, folks. There'll be context behind that. So the Rams obviously travelled to the Denham Stadium to take on the Whiners, who said they were resting all of their starters, but didn't they rest as many as they made out to be? Did they, Andy?
No, again, I think much like us, mate, there's only so many on your 53 that you can rest and obviously bring up from the practice squad as well. So, there were still a fair few starters, in the game, and much the same as us, we only rested, 4 or 5 guys. And then obviously took Puka out later on in the game once, he did some thing. I can't remember what it was. Wasn't important anyway. So
we'll maybe work out as we go through. But
yeah, there's something, but I can't remember. It's not important anyway. So he's only a 5th round pick. Who cares?
Exactly, he's a nobody. Yeah, he's nothing. Anyway, so going into this game, we obviously expected it to be a tough one, regardless of who played and who didn't play. It's goes without saying that we're absolutely delighted, aren't we, Andy, to have gone there and beaten them?
Yeah, especially as at the end of the first half, it kind of felt like the game was pretty much over and done with, and it was gonna be another loss. And then the team came out second half, made some adjustments, obviously with the personnel and sort of the game plan a little bit, and we held them to. All right, it's their backup, so I'm not going to pretend it was something, amazing, but we held them to 0 points for the second half and, managed to get the win. Obviously, there's still a few worrying things in the game. Obviously, kicking issues, but same can be said for them as well, but yeah, it was just nice to walk out with the win, see the fans a little bit annoyed, walking out of the Denham Stadium, and if nothing else, God forbid injuries, that, there are some players even, on the bench who can come in and step in and maybe have some roles, as we've seen throughout the season with the likes of DeMarcus Robinson.
Yep. Considering last year where we had that many guys out injured, that it was literally the backups playing week in, week out. Fast forward into this season, all the guys that have came in and out of the team, and it's not been just due to injury. I guess it's been due to kind of rotation, for snaps and whatnot. Everybody, for the most part, have performed above expectations. Let's put it that way. And I think Sunday was a really good showcase for the guys that were getting a chance to step up. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who plays. The Whiners could have had loads of injury issues and be forced to play the guys they played, against us. Darnold was playing the week before. Samuel was out there as well. For example, so it's not like they've got poor guys that are in there.
No, they had Tre'Davious Ward out there. They had Chase Young out there. That they still had quite a lot of big, supposedly star name players, and on some of it, some of our players, made them look like average players.
Yeah,
And
basically
that's
what I'm saying is that they immediately went into, but you beat our backups, you beat up the reserves. We didn't.
Yeah.
We beat you. We beat you. End of.
We beat your 53, just like
That's
off.
exactly. That's who you chose to play. That's the team. You can only beat the team that's in front of you. It doesn't matter who's on that team.
So
it's
basically,
still a
we'll
big
say, okay,
W.
our B team's better than your B team. There you go.
Well, that's it. That's the other way of looking at it. You're absolutely right there, Andy. That considering everything that's been said about this Rams roster, pre-season and throughout the season, right up to this week, the Rams roster is in much better condition than anyone out there. And that probably includes a lot of our own fan base because, dialing it back, we were like, there's a lot of potential that could come out of a year, but it's potential to plan for next year. Whereas the potential that we've realised is that we've got the potential to surprise and upset people and upset anyone who comes up against us.
Yeah, I think the analysts put it right, is teams don't want to come up against us. Even Kyle Shanahan himself, in his interview said, the Rams are a team you don't want to come up against because of how well they're playing and how organised they are. And, he did shout out McVay and Stafford as, two guys, the leadership qualities, Raheem Morris's leadership qualities, so the fact that your opposing coach, who hates your guts, still, points out they're a team to, and we're going into the playoffs, much, to be honest, like Green Bay. We weren't supposed to be there. This is supposed to be our year of we're in rebuild, rebuild and assessment year, basically, if you like. For Green Bay, it's right. Is Jordan Love the guy to move forward? For us, it was right. We've got a bunch of second, third, fourth, fifth round picks. We'll assess how they are, and then we'll move into free agency and the draft next year when we have the capital and we have the draft, the draft capital and the cash to be able to spend. So we've got nothing to lose. We can be as aggressive and whatever because we aren't supposed to be in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Every analyst at the start of the year was like, yeah, the Rams will be picking top 5, top 3, whatever. There was no analyst who said we'd be, including myself. I didn't think, we'd be anywhere near where we are now. So we can go into the playoff game with an attitude of, well, we ain't supposed to be here. We've got nothing to lose. Let's go for it. And I think we saw some of that against the Niners where, on a lot of fourth downs, it was, we'll go for it. We're getting I think McVay is getting the team into that mentality of it's playoffs now. Let's just go for it and we'll see what happens.
All or nothing.
Yeah.
All in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like you said, the kind of the caption that the team are going with is we're here for it. Like we're we're not here to make up the numbers.
No.
Despite all of our expectations. I think a lot of us, especially when people are putting their predictions, you'd have been struggled to find a lot of people putting us as having a winning record. Now I have seen people that have reposted tweets and posts that put out at the start of the season where they've said I think the Rams will have a winning record, and that's great that there's a lot of members of the fan base that did have that optimism. Now we were optimistic about we could go out and we could get a good amount of wins, but I personally have been absolutely surprised at how well we've done to finish 10-7, double digits of wins, 7-1 post bye. The only team to beat us were the Ravens. The only team, and
we held them to a close
when you look at who we played pre-bye, and you've got the likes. Well, you get we played the Niners obviously last week there, but played them, Dallas, Green Bay,
Eagles.
Philly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but am I right then in saying that the Bucks and the Lions are the only teams that we haven't played that are in the playoffs?
Yeah. Bucks and the Lions are the only 2 teams we have not played.
Played the other 5 teams, and I think I seen. I put this out on the Twitter. No, I think it was in Discord. Actually, I said it. That I think that we've played 7 teams overall that are in the playoffs. Yep, 7 teams that are in the playoffs Oh no, I forgot to say. I'm going to have to look up the Discord later on that. But I've forgotten to start looking. I forget that. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. I put it in Discord the other day and I was all excited about it because it was another one like praising how well the Rams have done. But I think the stat was along the lines of saying about the likes of what the Eagles have just fallen to shit, basically. I think they've lost 5 of the last 6 pretty much.
Yeah.
I think the Giants was the only team they beat post by.
And then they got punched in the mouth this week.
Yeah. So it's like, and it's saying like the Cowboys as well. I think Green Bay are the only other team that they were kind of suggesting that, well, they're actually more on the up than, kind of plateauing or on the downwards. And they were basically more us than Green Bay, but kind of I've seen people starting to say that watch out for the Rams in Green Bay because they have nothing to lose. They're not expected to be here. They're not here, but they're not here equally to make up the numbers.
No, I will say the Bucs have just got in there because their division is garbage this year.
Yeah.
So it's a case of one of the winners had to come through, but you're not scared, I think, of them because they're not playing very well at all. So, but, we made it, we've got there, and, let's just see what happens over the next, next week. And only snag is it's a very early morning game for us, so it's going to be a long night. And I think at the moment, John is frozen, unfortunately.
Could you still hear me, though? I was trying to scroll. No, I'm gone. Sorry, my bad. I could still hear you fine there. I was trying to scroll through Discord to find what I was looking for there. Yeah, just before we may obviously move on to talk about the upcoming wildcard weekends and our matchup with the Lions, a couple of things we should maybe kind of single out. First of all, let's start with Carson Wentz, who we've obviously got a proper look at. Up to now, all we've seen is I think one series where he basically handed the ball off 3 times, handed it off twice and pitched it once. So, Andy, thoughts on Carson Wentz's performance starting against the Whiners?
Yeah, I don't think he did too bad. He was efficient. He got the job done. I don't think Stafford will be telling them to keep those running plays and the QB runs, though, in the playbook somehow. I think that'll be a case of, see all that garbage, get it out. I'm not doing none of that, Mark. But, I thought he was competent. He was very much, I think, McVay put him on the radar for teams either to come back for us next year as a backup.
Yeah.
Or potentially, for a team in the draft that hasn't got a high enough pick to maybe pick up one of the prospects out of the draft, to potentially one of those veterans that can maybe be re-signed again as a bridge player. So if nothing else, he's put him on the radar for other teams as well that maybe, need a quarterback that actually, in the right sort of scheme, he can still do the job, but hopefully he doesn't get picked up and maybe we can keep him as a backup to Stafford,
So would you say that he has a he would make a good backup for us?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he's proved that this week. It wasn't a perfect game, but it was a prototypical quality backup / bridge starter sort of, very much upon the lines of, Flacco and Jacoby Brissett. And, let's be honest, he played better than some of the starting quarterbacks in the league. So, it's kind of, I think he has put himself a little bit. And I think in credit to both, I hate crediting Shanahan for anything, but I think both McVay and Shanahan this week, I've put a lot of, even Sam Darnold, I've put these guys on teams' radars again of actually these guys can still play. They're never going to be, your Patrick Mahomes or Matthew Stafford sort of, level of player, but that they're competent enough that they can, with the right offense, get you wins and, get you through a season as a bridge.
Yeah.
But like I say, hopefully he'll stay with us. Nobody will want him and we can maybe keep him as his backup, and I'd be happy to keep him as a backup.
Yeah. Just looking at his stats, he was 17 for 24. 163, 2 touchdowns and an interception. He also led us in rushing this week. 17 carries, breaking the record for most rushes by a Rams quarterback since
1950.
50, wasn't it? Yeah. 17 for 56 and a touchdown. One thing I will say about him was I think you could kind of sum up his performances that his performance that he basically left nothing out there because he was willing to just, run the legs off himself and do whatever he could. I mean, there was one play, fourth quarter, it was that contentious sack or no sack play where he basically tossed the ball to Rivers. Or was it Evans?
Yeah.
Sorry. Rivers, I think it was, to basically save the sack. That quick thinking from him was like, it showed that the guy can still perform.
Yeah.
And he would make a good addition to any roster.
Yeah, so some of the passes he was putting around, he had the one to Davis Allen, which was right in the numbers.
Yeah.
We had the obviously touchdown pass to Puka. He had the touchdown pass to Tyler Johnson. They were tight window. He was making some really tight window throws and, bang on targets, back shoulders, etc., right where the ball had to be. Obviously, it's difficult for backups because, he's not getting the reps week in, week out with these players, first team players. But the fact that he came in, looked competent, was making some, funny, some wow throws that were Stafford-esque, a couple of sidearm throws and what have you. I do think that if he doesn't get picked up, I'd be more than happy to, like I said, to keep him with the team as a competent, because we all know Stafford does have an injury history, and it would be nice that we could have, obviously we don't know what's happening with Stetson Bennett, but I still think even if Stetson Bennett comes back, I think Wentz should be QB2 basically, if possible, and keep him where he is, and just, he's emergency break glass sort of guy that, could keep us, if Stafford's maybe injured for a week or two, he could keep us in games and, potentially scrape those wins, or, a win and a loss maybe out of 2 games. Whereas with Stetson Bennett, or who we've had previously with Walter Perkins, it was, oh geez, this is a loss. Stafford's out for 2 weeks. It's basically 2 losses.
Yep. I would definitely, after seeing him this week, I would definitely make the case for trying at least to keep him as our backup quarterback. I think he showed, enough grit and determination. And what was technically a game that you could say is meaningless, although every game against them, regardless of what's going on in the season, is not meaningless, folks. I'm not saying it is. Just if it was any other team, you would view it as a meaningless game, so it doesn't really matter. But to still grind out and go for, rally his back to win, and for him to rush for what was the game-winning touchdown and then complete to Atwell, wasn't it, for the 2-point conversion to then win the game. As you're saying, Andy, the guy showed that he can basically get the team to rally and, to keep us in games like that.
Yeah.
If Stafford was to be out or rested or whatnot.
Yeah, even the interception wasn't really his fault. It was deflected off the receiver's hands and just sort of went up. And, 9 times out of 10, the ball would have hit the deck before he managed to dive and catch it on the floor. This was the 1 out of 10 that, unfortunately, he just managed to get his fingertips to it in time.
Well, that's it. Like you said, it was tipped. It wasn't like he threw it straight to them.
No.
And it's like, that was an awful throw. It's just one of those ones, isn't it, I guess? But, I mean, overall, like you said, we've got this cap space and that, so we could, in theory, like you could say, let's get him signed up now, but it's not as simple as that, because you've got to look to the likes of guys like Kevin Dotson, who we will absolutely will be absolutely nuts not to get this guy tied up, because
I'm honestly surprised we haven't already. It would have been priority 1 for me as well. Right, mate, you know what? Let's just get you sorted out before the season's even over.
That's it.
We did Tyler Higbee. It should have been Higbee's done. Right, okay. A week or 2 later, right, Dotson, you say it's dotted line, sign. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Job done. Before he even gets a chance to hit free agency, where some team's probably going to put the price up by, 4 or 5 million a year cap hit.
Yeah, just to entice them.
Done.
For me, unless there's anyone else that you think would be deserving more, for me, he is the first guy that we need to get re-signed.
He
As
is.
soon as we're done here, because the change that we've seen in the offensive line from last year to this year, and that the main change, I suppose, really is that we've brought in a Villa who's played every single snap this season,
Yeah.
and and has been largely overlooked for that. But I suppose it's one of those ones. If you're not talking about your offensive line, then they're doing their job, I guess.
Basically,
But
yeah.
Dotson, they are talking about him because the guy is being graded that well. He's having his best year of his career so far. Like, we've got to get that. We've got to get him tied up. We're going to have the money there. Spend it, invest in that offensive line, because thanks to guys like him, thanks to guys like Avia, we can then have a running game. And Kyron Williams would have been absolutely annihilated with last year's offensive line, as opposed to what we've got there now. Get that line tied up, showed up, and then our offense next year could literally just go off in one.
Yeah,
because we'll only improve it. Put it that way.
Yeah, and look at Stafford. When he has a good offensive line, he's successful because he's had that time to sit in the pocket,
exactly,
and basically be like, okay, I'm not having to go 1-2 crap throw. Right, it's 1-2 cup. Oh, there he is, throw. He's had time to read out. Defense is better, and it's shown in his game this year. Stafford's always going to be one of them. He's always going to have those few dodgy throws where you're thinking, what the heck is he doing? What was he looking at? What was he thinking? But that's just Stafford throughout his career. He's never going to change that. He's very much a gung-ho, aggressive, go for it sort of quarterback at times. Now, I think this year he has calmed down a little bit. I'll give him that. He seems to have calmed down a little bit, and he is willing to take more of the check downs, the shorter routes. He's not looking for, the Hollywood glory pass. But, there's always that in his game that he wants to do that.
Yeah, just when I was saying about we're talking about Stafford getting more time on the ball. Do you know he was actually sacked more this year than he was last year?
Really?
Granted, they played less games last year.
I was going to say that you think he played half the amount of games he did last year. So
But I mean, in theory, he would have got sacked more. Yeah, he gets sacked 30 times this year. He gets sacked 29 times last year. So I guess you would say if you kind of project out what he would have got, it would have been a lot more. And he gets sacked 30 times. He gets sacked 30 times in his first season as well.
Yeah.
So
what happened then? So
Well, I don't know what we're talking about there, mate. But,
no.
But the point remains. We've solved the problems with the offense, the offensive line. Stafford, even though he's got more banged up than he was when he first came in to the team, because he's got the more time on the ball. He can actually read defenses. He can watch plays develop, and that's where guys like the man we're about to come on and talk about have been able to go out and actually just blaze a trail. And that man, of course, is Puka Nacua, who did something this week, didn't he, Andy?
Yeah. He made some garbage record that nobody cares about. Well, no, wasn't it 2 garbage records he passed? No, seriously, that dude is something else. All
week in the run up to the game, did you notice the Rams Twitter account was posting videos from the draft house?
Yeah.
About McVay and Snead talking about Puka. And there was analysts going on about how the Rams actually came to scout and draft him, and why the Rams, because we seem to have we've got a system. And from obviously I'm not going to tell you what the system is for what they're actually scouting for, right? But it's looking at things like how fast they actually run during the play, stuff like that. Because we don't really give a damn what the combine stats are. There's guys that were running a 4.2 or whatever, and as a wide receiver, and they're doing nothing. That doesn't actually transfer when you've got the pads and and the helmet on. You've got that extra weight. Whereas when they were assessing in the court, they seen something different. He was actually faster with the pads on.
Yeah, some players are the faster with the pads on, and don't forget as well, what people seem to forget is when he ran his 40 time, he was injured.
Yep.
So, he was carrying an injury already. So that was, but yeah, some players play faster on the field than they ever do, in a gym, with trainers and, t-shirt on. It's just the way they are. And, especially for a wide receiver, it's not just straight line speed. You look at the guy who's the fastest ever, John Ross.
Mm-hmm.
Great, he can go in a straight line very quickly. Ask him to run a deep post or, a switch back. He couldn't do it. They can't, a lot of them can't run routes like, Puka can. Puka can, run routes. He's got, as we clearly seeing this, quite a bit of speed this season as well, game speed. Like I say, this is his rookie year. He's still got things that, he needs to clean up. You can't argue that he's the perfect wide receiver.
No.
I think, like I said a few weeks ago, I watched an analyst and he said, he does still telegraph certain things that he's got to clean up with his body. So if he can get those cleaned up, the guy is literally going to be unstoppable for years to come.
Yeah.
Will seriously, when it comes to re-signing, he's going to get the bag big time. He might be the most expensive wide receiver ever if he keeps his trajectory as he currently is.
Fingers crossed we've got the cap space to keep them there. But
I think the team will want to make sure they've got the cap space on that one.
Yes. But as I said a few times, Nakua is Cup's replacement as wide receiver 1. If he continues on the path he's set for himself from year 1. But just looking at his stats, because I thought handy to have his stats for the season in terms of the breakdown. So he was 105 receptions, breaking the record for the season. 1,486 yards receiving, breaking the records. He averages 14.2 yards per catch, with his longest catch being 80 yards, which didn't go for a touchdown, believe it or not. And he had six receiving touchdowns. But like when you actually look at the breakdown of the games, so 119 yards against the Seahawks, 147 against the 49ers, folks.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite impressive in itself against them, because we usually struggle with them. 72 against the Bengals, 163 against the Colts, where they got the game-winning touchdown. 71 against the Eagles, 26 against the Cardinals, 154 against the Steelers, 43 against the Cowboys, 32 against the Packers. At this point in the bye week, everyone was kind of thinking, well, maybe he's kind of he's kind of the shiny novelty's wearing off.
I think as well, we were worried that teams were starting to figure him out defensively.
Yeah.
And, picking up on those, like I said earlier, those markers that he's going to break right, he's going to break left, he's going to cut back, he's going to come back for the ball. And we were worried that teams were picking up on those signals.
Yep. So post-bye came out 70 against the Seahawks, 27 against the Cardinals. He only managed 53 yards against the Cardinals over the whole season. Like, the Cardinals were the team that seemed to have kind of gotten pegged down, and that was off 4 receptions and it's 8 receptions out of 2 games. Then it was 105 against the Browns, 84 against the Ravens, 50 against Commanders, 164 against the Saints, 118 against the Giants, and then 41 against the 49ers. But obviously, that 41st yard was his last catch of the game, and he was straight off because the job was done.
Yeah. You see the sideline of McVay when he found that? He's like, get him off. He's done. He's done for the year. Yeah, I think he was annoyed that it wasn't done by half, and he could. But
respect to McVay for putting him out there to go for it, because a lot of our coaches would have been like, no, I know you've got a chance of breaking this all-time record, but next week matters more to us. So I think it's one of those ones. A lot of people were kind of, I've seen from the Discord server, were like, just throw screen passes to him to get the receptions and let him grind the yards that way. Just like, don't be like launching it down where he could get taken out or whatever, or like, he, turns the wrong way and then does his ACL and then that's it. Like,
I think again, the Whiners, they were basically double teaming him, so it was
difficult.
They weren't going to let him have the record for cheap and just go, just get it over and done with. It was very much a case of he had to earn that record And I think that was a better way of doing it, is having to earn that rather than the Whiners just going, yeah, there's your catch, there's your yards. Right, okay, you'll go, bye-bye. I think it feels better him actually having to physically earn it and, get the record like it should be, the correct way, rather than just giving them it for the sake of, because, you'd only have people moaning, they just gifted them that. Whereas in this game, nothing was gifted, and it was his skill and his abilities that got him the record.
Yep. I mean, the other thing to kind of look at with Puka is like some of these games, like 118 yards off of 5 catches is pretty good. 105 off of 4 is pretty good. Like the guy is capable of racking up the yards off of like nothing. Like against the Browns, like granted, like it was 4 for 105 yards. One of those catches was 70 yards.
Yeah.
Like,
but he's one of these guys. He'll catch the ball, and even if he's tackled instantly, because of how he plays, he'll always fall forward to get those extra couple of yards. Or how many times this year have we seen him with like those angry runs where he'll just keep charging through, and break tackles and get after people. He's not afraid of the contact. Some wide receivers will go, right, catch it, fall to the floor. I don't want to get hit. He's like, yeah, bring it on. Now, whether that's something he can sustain long term, you don't know. But, that's just, he's definitely one of those angry runners that just keeps going no matter what, and even drags people with him when he's been hit to get, those extra few yards every play. It always feels like whenever he catches the ball, he's always going to get 3, 4, 5 yards extra because of just how he plays. It's very rare that he's stopped straight away when he does catch it.
Yeah, he's kind of good at kind of breaking the tackle or evading the tackle like that. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you. Anything else? Oh well, sorry, actually, I was before we were going to be on it. Plus, so Puka obviously was named offensive rookie of the month for December/January, and Kobe Turner has been named the defensive rookie for the month. And I think the Rams Twitter account, if I'm not wrong here, Andy, actually put out that, don't know when the last time the same team had both offensive and defensive rookies in a month named.
Oh, God knows. I don't think I've seen it for quite some time. So, it's quite a really nice privilege. And fair play for Kobe Turner as well on the spike, trying to intercept the ball as it was on its way down. That was a fair bit of ingenuity. I'd have laughed myself so hard if that had come off. But, I think you do have to give, a little bit of a shout out to the defense for certainly the second half performance. They locked, backups against backups. They locked them down second half, and some players made some big plays again when we needed it. Obviously, Hoyt got a sack. Deshaun Johnson is Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah, Michael Hoyt, Mr. LA. Mr. Irrelevant for this year. Johnson got a sack, and obviously Byron Young got a sack and fumble recovery as well. So, again, players, obviously, Hoyt and Young are more, starters, but, even some of the guys stepping in, Johnson getting, a sack and looking good. If we could just sort our secondary out, we maybe have a competent unit. And obviously, I think one more thing we do need to shout out is Ernest Jones, who's now the LA Rams single season tackle record holder. So the guy has come a long way. Obviously took that year out with Bobby Wagner to pick up some of the intricacies of the game, and has now broke a record himself. And I think obviously with Puka's record, it's kind of been overshadowed, but I do think it needs to be highlighted.
Absolutely does. He's had a tremendous season for us, and Ernest Jones is one of those guys that Aaron Donald has said that this guy's an absolute stud in the making. He's got so much promise and potential, and AD's even said that no, he will realise it. It's not a case of is he going to be that good? AD said this guy is going to be that good for us.
I think even analysts now are starting to pick up on Ernest Jones as an up and coming linebacker, especially after this year.
Yeah,
I think it was Good Morning Football. Was it last week? I think I can't remember if it was Schrager. I think it was Peter Schrager actually was highlighting what Jones has done this year, and he was
Yeah,
basically saying
like Taylor.
this guy is now borderline top 10, between sort of top 5, top 10 linebacker in the league for what he's done this year. And his projection is only going to go up if he continues.
Yeah.
So, it's nice to see some recognition for players who maybe, aren't getting the recognition that they probably should deserve.
Yep, no, absolutely. And it's one of those ones, like, when you look at like the guys like Jones, and you even just look around, you look at Jones, you got Byron, you got Kobe Turner, to less extent, Hoyt as well. You're like, defensive line, linebacker core, we're starting to build a decent core of players there. And if we could just get the secondary sorted out, which fingers crossed we'll do in free agency, we'd be back to having a very formidable defense again, wouldn't we, Andy?
Yeah, exactly. We're not that many pieces. At the start of the season, it was, oh my God, we've got so many holes in the defense. And this is where a lot of analysts were saying it wasn't offensively, it was defensively. It was whether Stafford can stay healthy, and this defense is just going to be like a leaking ship. It's just going to leak everything left, right, and players have stepped up in big roles. And I do think, like I've said previously, I think if we could get a true number one edge rusher alongside Young, and maybe another linebacker alongside Jones, and then a corner or two potentially, to step up into those roles. That we're a complete defense again. We are getting that way, and we still have some players as well who haven't really had much game time. Trey Tomlinson has not had a chance this year. I'd like to maybe. I don't understand how Kendrick gets game time week in, week out, and they just don't seem to, Tomlinson doesn't need, whether it was maybe they feel he needs a year's coaching on certain things before they're going to launch him in next year. But, it's just that there's still players, let's say, who we don't know about as well, which is promising.
Yeah.
Maybe some of these guys can step in next year, and, and I think as well, another one I don't think we've really mentioned much is Rush Yeast. He seems to, at the moment, they've seemed to have played him in that nickel corner sort of role. And he's, he made couple of important punch outs this week that, potentially could have been game winning, plays. And over the last few weeks has played well in that role. So, again, the guy who's with a bit more experience, maybe he can knock down the nickel corner. That Jalen Ramsey sort of role that we had him last year, that star nickel role. Maybe that's another position we've already got fixed and sorted.
Maybe. Anything else you want to say, Andy, before we start looking ahead to the playoffs?
Let's just not have any kicking controversies, please, because Mayer missing that extra point. It's just like, here we can go again. The only good thing is the Whiners kicker missed a field goal and an extra point, so hopefully if we do meet them again, that'll be the outcome.
Yeah,
but it is a worry that we've still not got this kicking stuff sorted out, and we're now in the playoffs where kicking matters. That point is the potential between, or a missed field goal is the potential between getting through to the next round and going out. And also in the back of McVay's mind, it's got to be, do I go for this fourth down, or do I kick the field goal and maybe take the points? In playoffs, points matter more than anything else.
Absolutely, and it is a worry. So moving on, folks, and obviously coming up this week, it's the playoffs, and we are not, as we said last week, surprisingly, we're not here to talk about just the playoffs in general. We're here to talk about the Rams in the playoffs. So with everything wrapped up, the way it worked out is we are going to Detroit, and it seems to be a case of the NFL script leaks were true. Imagine if Stafford went back to Detroit. So it's this Sunday, but really it's Monday for us over here, and I'm in the UK, 1 o'clock in the morning. Worst time of the week. And doesn't it, Andy, to have a game?
It is, yeah, but it is what it is, and
it is what it is. And based off all the games that are out there, because of the story behind it, immediately I thought, no, this is a prime time slot game, because the story writes itself. Stafford's going back to Detroit. Goff is now in Detroit. His old team are coming back. You know, it kind of plays into that. You know, so yeah, and going to Detroit for starters. How in general, how do you feel about having to go to Detroit as opposed to going to Dallas, for example?
I think I'd rather go to Detroit than Dallas personally. I
Absolutely, yeah.
feel, it's a better game for us. Obviously, the storyline writes itself, as you've said, mates, and I just can't wait for this game now. I can't wait. I'm actually gonna sit up and watch it live because I do feel it's going to be a tough game, but it's very much of which defense can play better, ours or theirs, because both defenses have exactly the same issues, which is the secondary. Their secondary gets torched. They got torched. Was 8 over 2 games over the last 3 weeks? Over 2 games, they allowed Nick Mullins to throw for over 800 yards in 2 games.
Oh my God.
So their secondary is just as dodgy as ours. So it's going to be either which secondary can step up and play better, or which offense can just get that edge. And I do feel when it comes to playoff situation, our experience, is going to be the key factor. We will cope with the emotions better, and obviously, Detroit started their starters, and they've got 1 or 2 potential big injuries that they may have to live without, which could potentially put a bit of a wrinkle in their game plan.
Is Sam Laporta out?
They've not said if he's out yet. He's questionable at the moment with a knee injury. Again, I think that's very much going to be, they're going to try all the way through till basically game time, and then they'll make a decision at game time what he'll do. But I think people don't realise that's quite a big piece missing for Detroit, especially for Goff. It's his safety blanket. If he can't play,
Just looking at their report now, he didn't practice, but did some on-field work, is what they've said. The cornerback Jerry Jacobs was downgraded. He's got a fine injury. The only other no practice were Terry Bridgewater and Caliph Raymond. That's all they had. So that's the latest. That's from this evening. That injury report. So that's their up-to-date one. Ours is currently not out, I believe, just to see. But I don't think, to be honest, there's anyone that we are overly worried. So in fact, here we go. I've got one. Well, it's not the up-to-date one for this evening, but the latest one. Dotson was limited yesterday in practice with a shoulder issue, questionable. Fuller and Higbee were both questionable. Sean Jolly's out. Hunter Long's out. Not really bothered about them, I'd say. Joe Noteboom, questionable with his foot. He didn't practice yesterday. Troy Reader, been questionable. He's questionable in general, let's put it that way, folks.
In fairness, though, in the Whiners game, he played okay up until he got injured. I'll say that much. He didn't look as bad as he used to. I think maybe a season or 2 of being elsewhere has helped him.
Yeah. There's no one on our injury report. Dotson being questionable. Dotson's the only one I would be worried about, but it's likely to be a game time decision. I reckon he'll play anyway, but there's no one else like, we're going to be without X, Y, and Z. Like you said, Laporta looking like he could be out for them is a bit of a hit for him because he's been like a good player for them this year, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be, but like I said, I do feel that out of the 2 teams, I think this is a matchup out of all the playoff teams, outside of obviously the Bucks, who, I think is the team you'd want to go against. And I do feel, like I say, the occasion may either get to Detroit, Stafford, and some of the players' experience will just win the game.
Yep. And like you said, I think our experience will do us well here because, like, we've been there, we've done it, we've been to the Super Bowl, twice, in the last 5-6 years.
Yeah.
and of those times, like the first time we weren't expected to get there, but we got there. We went on the road to get there as well. We went to an inhospitable place to win the NFC. So we've got experience. Like there's this guy still in the roster from back then that know what it's like to go on the road to win in playoffs games. And then we've got the guys that have been on the roster in the last couple of years that were there when we won it in our own backyard. So there's a wealth of experience there in the roster for us to go out there. And I wouldn't say I'm not going to say anymore that it's shock. Because I don't think it would be a shock for us to beat the Lions on Sunday. I think, like you said, both the teams are. I think it's a fair assessment to say both teams are on the kind of same level as each other, in terms of their weaknesses. But I would say that without a doubt, we are the stronger team because we're in form. At the moment as well, the Lions kind of started falling away as well. Granted they were cheated out of a loss, out of a win, sorry, against the Cowboys, but that's beside the point. We are a team that's still in the up. We're performing well, and we're going to have, the likes of Stafford, Cup, Aaron Donald, who have had the equivalent of a second bye week to get ready for this.
That is the only thing that does worry me, is because I think they put a statistic up, and apparently quarterbacks who've played the final week of the season and to ones who've been rested, is the win rate is a lot lower for quarterbacks who've been rested than players who've played the final game of the season. So that is something that worries me, that Stafford was on a roll. He was, it was rolling pretty much apart from one game. And
that worry it's going to derail it. The momentum's gone with him.
He'll be a bit out of the flow. He'll be, maybe not going to say rusty, but it might, a drive or two to get back in that flow. And Detroit does have the capability of those two drives that were ineffective. They could be 2 scores up, and then all of a sudden you're chasing the game.
Yeah, no, and it's a fair point. You mentioned something similar to that last week, and I'd said at the time, but look at us when we went into the bye week as opposed to when we came out of the bye week. It was like a completely different Stafford. But it's a very valid point, because he's basically been 2021 Matthew Stafford pretty much again. We've seen that regardless of any injuries, he's still capable of being that guy. But it's a very valid point that taking him out last week. It's understandable why, because we also want him to play and to be fully fit and healthy going to this game. But it's a valid point why it's a big risk to take, especially going on the road as well. If we were at home, I'd probably feel a bit different about it, because I said, well, we've got the home crowd behind us, you've got the encouragement and whatnot. But what it's kind of not. I can't really say what kind of atmosphere he's going to go into going to Full Fields. So obviously he spent so many years there in Detroit. But one thing I did pick up on, and it was as soon as the clock hit 0 in our game, was the amount of salty Stafford comments and posts getting put online by Lions fans, Andy. Now, you and I, we talked about this briefly when you were on the Discord yesterday, the day before, and you were saying about but he did ask for a trade in the end, and it's I could understand why you'd be annoyed that he's turning and saying I want to go, but are the Lions fans justified in turning around and some of them going, boycott Stafford, do not wear his jersey, boo the hell out of him, given all of the years and the sacrifices the guy gave their team?
I can kind of understand, because obviously you want your team to win now, and you want. We all know if you go into a hostile environment, a loud environment as a quarterback, it's harder for you. You can't get the play calls off properly. You're having to do silent counts and everything else. So I do think a little bit of it is over the top, but like I said in Discord, if we'd have gone to the Super Bowl, lost, and Aaron Donald then said, I want to be traded, and he went to, say, Detroit, just as an example, and now this
Yeah.
season we're playing Detroit, I'd be like, well, fuck Donald. He's on the opposition. I want my team to win. Let's make life hell, for him for this one game. As much as what he's done for us, once you leave, you're the enemy for that one game. Don't get me wrong. I still have a lot of things for Jared Goff, but in this game, I couldn't give a crap about him. I want Aaron Donald to be able to do what he never was able to do for years, and that is to beat the living daylights out of the guy. Crush his soul. After this week, I'll be back to, I like Goff. I think he's a good player, but for this one game, I don't care about him. And I do think that is some of the feeling of, Detroit fans is, well, sorry, Stafford's the past. This is the future. We want to win.
Yeah.
We want to progress in the playoffs. So, like I say, I do think some of it is a little bit over the top what they're saying, but at the same time, I can understand the sentimentality behind,
Yeah.
he's the opposition this week. He doesn't, he doesn't matter to us. He's not a line anymore.
Yeah, it's different. I guess it's different if it's a regular season game.
Yeah, when we played them in the regular season, they were nothing but, love for Stafford. And, there wasn't any, all right, it was at our ground, but, Detroit do tend to travel well. There was none of that. It's a home field advantage. Their first playoff game in, 30 odd years at home.
30 years. 1993 was the last time.
I think,
in fact, the last time they won, it was the division setup was totally different. It was still the only three. It was 3 divisions per conference back then.
But I think let them make all this noise, and it's going to make it all the more sweeter when Stafford goes in on Monday morning for us, whoops their arseholes, wins the game, and then basically goes, and then they'll all come crawling back to loving Stafford again. And that's the way I look at it. I'm not letting it bother me because, it's just noise. It is just noise. Be like, whatever.
Like, I think for me, it was literally as the clock hit 0 in our game, it was straight to that rather than like, let's get fired up about the game, let's get behind it and all that. It was more like instant being just salty towards one player as opposed to like, because if we when we went through our kind of dark phase where we weren't making the playoffs, like regardless of who we were coming up against, that first year getting back to the playoffs, our fan base would have been more like, we're in the fucking playoffs again, holy shit. You know what I mean? Like, get where they're coming from and get where what those feelings is coming from, but channel a bit better.
Yeah.
Like, I get he's going to be your enemy. I'm sitting here with a golf jersey on. This is one of my favourite jerseys. I love the classic throwback one. I've got a lot of admiration for Goff for what he did in his time. The Rams. Don't wish him any ill. I hope he gets beat this week, but that's it. I'm not going to sit and go, like, fuck Goff. That man cost us a Super Bowl. That man cost us so many wins. Not going to be like that. Like I said, the past is the past. We've moved on from him. Yous have moved on from him. Yous have got your guy. You're calling him your fucking guy now. Some of them are putting it as their banner and their header, in their bio. Goff has found his feet at Detroit. Be happy for you got rather than what you had with Stafford. Stafford moved on.
Yeah.
He wanted to move on. He got what he wanted out of it. You guys got what you wanted out of it. You got your franchise quarterback without a shadow of a doubt, and you've been able to amass a few other players, to strengthen your team. Thanks to that Stafford trade, I would say that's the reason why the Lions are where they are now. Thanks to Stafford leaving.
Yeah, I will say one thing though. A lot of Detroit fans have basically these groups that have been coming out, especially the one with like the banned Stafford shirts, have basically been like, "Shut the fuck up,"
There is to give
a lot of Lions fans.
There is a lot of them come out saying, "Fuck you."
Yeah, there is a lot of Lions fans. I think it's just the usual idiots who, let's be honest, every team has those idiots who, are very much, look at us. There's been a lot, there's been certain fan groups who've taken great delight in mocking the crap out of Bobby Wagner. You wanted to go to a playoff team and you didn't even make it, and look where we are. Is it right? Is it wrong? We can't very well moan about, them doing this to Stafford, and then we'll go and do the same thing to like Wagner. It's kind of like, well, it's some of it's banter, some of it is just idiots are always going to be idiots no matter what, especially when it comes to sports,
Yeah.
know. And I think I think Stafford will go into there, he'll get a warm welcome before the game starts. The minute the game starts, then it'll be booing and noise because that'll be it. And then at the end of the game, whatever happens,
that's it.
Fans will be, moving
I
on.
mean, Stafford did come out and say the day after the Whiners win that he's very much looking forward to going back to Detroit. I think he pretty much said that it was the game he was hoping to get as opposed to, wanting to get, in terms of like whatever he thought, like, I want to play this team because I think I have a better chance. That was the game he was hoping to get because he wants that chance to go back to Detroit as well because he's got so much history there, and the guy, like, with how that Lions team had been over the years, the guy was a shining light for them for so many years. So, it's natural he's going to always have that affinity there. And like, I get that, there's going to be a bit of booing and whatever not, but like for the most part, I think you're right, Andy. That but like it's Matthew Stafford, like gave all these years to did so much for the community and whatnot. Like he's always he's not a ram at heart. He's always going to be like a lion at heart, and it's one of the ones he'll probably end up going back there to retire. You know what? So it's a bit, like you said, that it's every fan base, I guess you're right, has got it. Like, it's just a bit shitty that people are more driven by wanting to hate the guy more than focusing on your team's in the playoffs for the first time in 30 years, guys. Come on, focus on that.
I think as well, you've got to remember, the negativity stuff is always going to overwrite the positive stuff. For every positive news stories, of can't wait to see Stafford, but I hope he loses. That doesn't get you clicks on it on Twitter or Facebook.
No, it's not going to
Stafford. I hate the guy. Let's smash him up and don't wear his jerseys. He's getting you the clicks on Facebook. On X, and for a lot of these guys who've put things like for example, the Stafford thing, they want the clicks because they get paid for those clicks. Every time they have an engagement, they get cash for that click. So they've got to put things out just for the sake of putting out for the clicks. But like I said, I do think a lot of genuine fans are looking forward to this game. Obviously, for the Lions fans, hoping he gets beat, but and their team progresses. But for us, it's the opposite. We want to, do well. A couple of sacks from Aaron Donald, and everyone will walk away happy.
Yep. That was the next thing I wanted to ask: is what do we have to do to win this game, Andy? Apart from obviously put points in the board, score touchdowns. What, in terms of the game plan, do we need to focus on?
Stop the run. That is the first thing we've got to do. We cannot allow, Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to run all over us because that is predominant of Green Bay's game, much like us. They're very much a run first, which leads to the pass. So get the run stopped, put it on Goff's arm, and then get the pressure on Goff, because Goff, when he's under pressure, as we all know, struggles.
He can't scramble for the life of him.
He can't move. He's a bit like Stafford. He can't move. He's mobile enough to do things like play action screens and play action boots and stuff like that. But he's not mobile enough. He's not Lamar Jackson, who's gonna, oh crap, the pocket's collapsing, I'll spin out and run for 20 yards. But if you just put the guy under pressure, he sends to where he's having to read the field a little bit quicker. Teams that have been successful against Detroit this year have very much blitzed him. Blitz stunts, just put him under pressure, which is then causing him to have those turnovers, because he's got to read the field. And I think we saw that ourselves when he was with us. Goff, when he had time, was great. Goff, when he was under pressure, because, the pocket's collapsing and, you can feel the guy, the edge rusher behind him. You can feel him, even though he might not be there. You can just sense, he's more likely to speed up. And our secondary just needs to hold up, against the likes of Armand, Ra St. Brown. We've got to stop that guy as well. If Laporte is playing, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But if we can get our front 4 or 5, whatever we want to do, getting onto Goff's backside, getting him rushed, and then obviously offensively we've just got to do our game plan, which again, like I say, both teams match up very well with their strengths and their weaknesses. We're both very, very similar teams. And I think one thing I've just remembered I needed to highlight as well. Since the trade, Goff and Stafford have basically got identical records.
I saw that earlier today, and it was because you're talking there. Like, I think it's for both teams. I think it's fair to actually say that it's a very evenly matched game. I think it's only we are 3-point underdogs going into this game. It's that close that unfortunately it would be marked as a fucking field goal, wouldn't that? Like, in terms of the margin, wouldn't that? And that's a worry that it's going to come down to basically the kicking game, because the teams offensively and defensively are almost pretty much evenly matched.
Yeah, if you look at us, our defensive line, it's Aaron Donald, and then you've got obviously Kobe Turner's coming out, Byron Young to a certain extent, Hoyt is there or thereabouts. You look at Detroit's defensive line, it's Aiden Hutchinson. Then you've got Ali McNeil if he's healthy, and then again a couple of bit part players, who aren't going to be double digit, 20 sack guys a year. So we match very similar.
Yeah,
they may have a slight advantage on our offensive line, but I think our guards are better than. I think their tackles are better than our tackles, but our guards are better than their guards. So it's very much. But where Aaron Donald's going to be is right down the middle, in the guard center area, which is where they are the weakest. So, hopefully he can get some success there. And our secondaries, like I said before, match up very, very well against each other. They're basically identical to each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to come down to who can get the run game going the best and who can get the deep shots off as well.
Yeah.
Especially, and I do feel when it comes to the crunch that Stafford will have the better chance over Goff. Like I say, with any luck, but we'll just have to wait and see. It's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a run. I think it's going to be a tense game, and I think it is going to be, a very close game as well. I really do feel it is potentially going to come down to field goal or, which defense is on last and who can get the stop, a potentially defensive stop, and
I would kind of say, I know the kind of margin is it's 3 points, I think it'll definitely would be within a touchdown of each other. I think it'll be very tight. I don't even think it'll be I don't think it'll be a high scoring game. I think it'll probably be somewhere in the region of kind of the 2021 that we just had there at the weekend. So that kind of margin, I think it could potentially be that close.
See, I feel the opposite. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. I could see this being 30, 35 points each team. And, it's going to be because of how bad our secondaries are. I think both teams will find a bit of success, against each other's secondaries. I do think it could be for the neutral. I think it could be quite an entertaining game for a neutral.
Yeah.
Perspective. For us, it's probably going to be a nerve-wracking. Luckily, I don't have any hair left to pull out, but unfortunately for you, John, you may be coming on next week as bald as I am.
I hope not, mate. I hope not. I hope I'm coming on next week with a big, massive grin on my face. All in all, though, I think that I know we're both kind of saying that the teams are evenly matched. I would like to think that we do have the edge on them, even though we're marked down as the underdogs. And I think it's because of the likes of Kobe Turner where I think we do have the edge, because, like you're saying, they're weak down at the guards, where Aaron Donald's going to be coming right down. They're going to shift their offensive line to counteract that, but not counteract Kobe Turner or even Byron Young. I think that those two guys in defence could be what makes the difference for us this weekend.
Yeah, I do.
Offensively, I've no worries whatsoever as long as Stafford's not got any rust, like you're saying, on him from being there. We've got Kyron Williams, who can literally just blaze a trail out there. He can run through fire. That guy, the way he's looking right now.
Is Detroit, I think, top 4, top 5 run defense team. So it's a difficult team to run on. I will say that much. They are a difficult team to run on. But this is where, again, I want to see McVay. So what if Williams is only grinding out 2-3 yards at a time? We've got to keep pounding the rock on first and second down to set up, some play action stuff and what have you. Because if McVay goes to the pass, like he tends to do when the run game isn't working well, it could cause us issues. We need to keep Aiden Hutchinson sort of second guessing, and more importantly, their linebackers as well, second guessing the run game.
Yeah.
And we can't be allowing them, because Detroit do like to blitz their linebackers as well. The middle linebacker, they'll normally blitz one, sometimes both of them. So we've got to make sure we don't allow them to do that. We've got to keep their linebackers ideally off the line, sort of, 5-10 yards away, because they're worried about the run game.
So what you're saying is really the run game is probably more key for us.
Both teams. Like I say, both teams match up perfectly. Both teams, if they get the run game going and they're grinding out the yards on the run game, it opens up the rest of the playbook. If both teams have to go into a drop back passer constantly, like we've seen, both teams struggle. That's what I say. Both teams match up so well to each other. It's kind of scary just how well the teams. I think this is the playoff game with the two teams that match up so bloody well to each other in terms of what their strengths are. Both teams are exactly the same strengths, and what their weaknesses are. Both teams have got exactly the same weaknesses. And like I say, it's just weird how we've both managed to draw against each other because of how similar we are, And like I say, I think this is going to be a neutrals game of the week, and for us, it's going to be But I do feel overall our experience will get us the win, and I'm very confident that we'll be walking out of Ford Field with a win. And then, depending on what happens to Green Bay, well, that might mean then the next game is a Whiners game, and we'll come to that bridge when we cross it.
Yeah, we will. But I like your confidence, Andy, and I would like to bask in your confidence of the game. Not to say that I feel that we're going to lose. It's probably the most confident I've heard you all season about a game. So that's why I want to bask in it. But yeah, like yourself, I think we've got the edge to take this. Looking elsewhere at the playoffs, what I'm going to get you to do, Andy, is we'll actually kind of go through each game and we'll see who we think is going to win it. And we'll just for fun see how the playoff and the postseason is going to look based off how we look and feel. So elsewhere in the NFC, second seed Dallas Cowboys entertain 7th seed Green Bay Packers, and the 4th seed Tampa Bay Buccaneers entertain the 5th seed Philadelphia Eagles, which is quite funny to say that because the Eagles were so highly tipped to be 1 or 2. Andy, elsewhere in the NFC, what are you thinking in terms of let's start with the Green Bay Cowboys game. Do you think Green Bay are going to cause an upset?
On paper, the Cowboys should win this hands down. However, this is the Cowboys. It is the playoffs, and we all know Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott tend to have problems. And obviously, there's the storyline of Mike McCarthy going back to Green Bay after being the coach there for so long, and sort of get that. But it's not a game I'd bet on. But I just think I think the Cowboys maybe can finally break that voodoo, and I think because of how young again Green Bay is, I think they'll just do enough I think Cowboys will just do enough. But I do think it could be a nervous, close game. But I wouldn't also be shocked if Green Bay did win it, to be brutally honest. But I'm going to take the Cowboys on that one.
What is it they said about Green Bay have got a kind of pattern of making the Super Bowl. So they draft like the replacement quarterback, then like start them, and then they make the Super Bowl. And I think that because they've done it was the same when Favre left and Rodgers came in and then made the Super Bowl, and then it's kind of the pattern is repeating again. I think it started with Favre, then it happened with Rodgers. Now it looks like it's happening again with Love. So who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Tampa Bay, Philadelphia. What are you thinking there?
Again, your head says it's got to be the Eagles. You know, they're a stronger team on paper. The Bucks have basically scraped in because they're in a crap division and have just not looked good the last few weeks. But you know, the Eagles have slowly fell apart, and I believe, isn't it? I believe it's at Raymond James in Tampa.
It is, yeah, because they're the higher seeds. Yep.
Yeah, so that could be, crowd factor. But again, I just think the Eagles should have enough quality just to get over the line on this one. But again, it wouldn't. But it's one of them again, much like the Green Bay game. It wouldn't shock me if the Bucks did do it. But
yeah,
I'm going to go with the Eagles just because I think.
Mm-hmm. So off of that would give us a divisional round of us traveling to play the Niners and the Eagles traveling to Dallas. So all based on that, Andy, we're obviously beating the Niners. Let's just be honest there. So we're beating the Niners. What about Dallas Eagles?
Oh, I think again, I think this would
Ben
be
Dallas.
Yeah, you'd say Dallas should win this, but that this may be the game where they do choke it all, and the Eagles unfortunately win it. So yeah, I'd go the Eagles to win that one.
Okay. Flipping over to the AFC, we've obviously just set up a Rams Eagles Conference Championship. There, so in the AFC, so the 7th seeded Steelers, they're going to travel to Buffalo. The 6th seed Dolphins travel to Kansas, although they're trying their damned hardest to not have to travel to Kansas. I've been seeing because the temperatures are going to be 0 degrees. And the Joe Flacco Browns are going to Houston, of all places. And the Steelers, Bills. Check the Bills.
It's the Steelers. I don't know. The Steelers are a fraud, mate. They're the worst team in the playoffs, and I don't think the Bills are even going to. I think the Bills can start their B team or the C team, and they'd still beat the Steelers. I really do. That would be the greatest shock I think in NFL history if the Steelers win. I really do.
I've actually predicted the Steelers to win this game just because. Fuck it, why not?
Fair enough.
Chiefs Dolphins. I personally think the Chiefs purely because of the weather, as opposed to anything else.
I know you said apparently it's literally just been tweeted now that apparently with wind chill factor at Kansas City, the wind chill is going to have it down to -30 with the wind chill.
Oh,
yeah, that's not nice.
For anyone listening, right? So it's something like that's cold, right? For us over here across the pond, that's like Arctic Circle cold.
Yeah.
In Europe, and considering that Kansas is a lot further south than the Arctic Circle, Jesus, man, that's cold.
I have a feeling that game's going to get moved because I think Dolphins will not. They don't want to play that. I don't really think the Chiefs want to play that.
They're trying to go to Indianapolis. I've seen.
Yeah,
they're pushing to go.
I think for safety purposes, I don't think the league will allow it either if there's a safety issue, which I believe they're now saying if attempts get to that, you can't have even fans. Fans will freeze in the stands because it's open air, isn't it? So there's a safety element. But,
I mean, that's been something that's been kind of a bit contentious about with teams like Kansas that with the extreme cold that they get, they really should have a dome, or even just roofs. I guess.
Green Bay's the same, mate, and it's never, Buffalo's the same. They've all got open air stadiums. Because that element in playoffs does factor for them in their favour.
It does. So we'll go off the basis that it's staying in Kansas.
If it stays in Kansas, the Chiefs, because I just don't think the Dolphins. But then I do think the Dolphins have got a nerve when they're the ones that have basically made their away sideline in the sun with 120 plus degree temperatures, So they kind of got a little bit of a cheek to moan. So I think if it stays in Kansas, I think the Chiefs, just because I don't think the Dolphins are going to cope with the cold, and running the ball, is going to be a lot harder. And I think the Chiefs D line is underrated. Personally, I think their defensive line, as much as obviously Mahomes gets all the praise, the stats, Mahomes and Kelsey, I think the only reason the Chiefs have made the playoffs this year is down to how good their defense is. I really do feel their defense.
Having what? Yeah. So as I've mentioned a few times over the course of the year, like my wife, due to Taylor Swift, has been getting a budding interest in American football, and as part of that, she likes to see how the Chiefs are getting on. So I've been privy to some more of the Chiefs than I've ever been used to, and from watching them, especially in the last few weeks of the season, their offense is garbage.
Like, they need, if they could have one wide receiver that could actually catch a ball, they'd actually be probably quite unstoppable. But unfortunately, and I mean, even Travis Kelce's now starting to get the dropsy disease that seems to be going around their locker room.
That's it. And it's not even like a lot of the time it's basic catches. Yeah. If that makes sense. It's like it's not like hard throws that Mahomes giving them. It's like simple catches, like not even ones. Sometimes not even ones like where they're on the run or have to try to turn as they catch it. But so I think I think like you said, it's not down to their offense. Like why they've somehow still been number 3 seeds. Yeah, but then again, the rest of the division isn't exactly the best, so it's been pretty easy for them, I guess, to finish as the winners in the AFC West. Moving on to the last wildcard game in the AFC, the Texans hosted. This was a tougher one to kind of pick because you've got CJ Stroud has taken a team who picked second in the draft last year and taken them to the playoffs. Whereas you've got Joe Flacco, who's came, for eating chips on the couch to taking the Browns to the playoffs. What do you think, Andy?
Again, I think it's a close game, but I think I'm going to take the Browns on this one, as I feel their defense is just going to smother, the Texans. I don't think, the Texans are just... They're building well, and it's they've proven the correct formula for a rebuild is just tear the lot down. I think a few teams this offseason really need to look at how they've done it and do the same thing. But I think the occasion and just the Browns defense is just going to be too much. They played each other, was it Christmas Eve? And the Browns won 36-22. Now, admittedly, that was with Davis Mills as quarterback because CJ Stroud was out injured for that one, but I just, feel that, like I say, the Browns defense again is just going to smother CJ Stroud. They're going to draw up, that the Browns do like to, disguise coverages, stunts and everything else. And I think they're just going to get a little bit too confusing this year for CJ Stroud, but I do think this, again, it's going to be a close game. I think could be an entertaining game, but I do think, the Browns, unfortunately, do win this one.
Okay, moving on to divisional rounds, that would see the Browns go to Baltimore and the Chiefs go to Buffalo. Ravens, Browns, for me, it'd be Ravens.
Yep,
it's a no-brainer. There's no even point in discussing it. Bills versus Chiefs, though, would be quite a different one, and I'm more inclined to say that the Bills would edge the Chiefs there.
That's exactly what my pick was going to be. I think the Bills will do this. I think, when it comes to, the game, I think Josh Allen and what they've got on offense will be enough to override, their defense. And I think regular season, they beat them as well. So, that plays a factor as well. So I do think, I'd take the Bills on that one.
Yeah, again, I feel like it's a no-brainer, and it's like, considering they said that the Chiefs would beat the Dolphins, the reason I'd say that is based off the fact that they'd be beating the Dolphins in the cold, whereas they're basically coming up are basically another team that's in the cold. So
both
on
teams.
that basis, Buffalo are the better team because like we were just saying there, the Chiefs' offense isn't exactly the greatest in terms of in the air.
No.
And at the moment,
I think when it comes to the run game as well, I just feel a lot of people underrate Buffalo's run game as well. I do think with James Cook, they found their running back, and obviously, as much as Mahomes can run, I think Josh Allen is a better runner, a physical runner who can grind out the yards better as well. So I think that would be the factor that wins it for me.
Yep. So that would set up a Bills-Ravens championship for the AFC. So what's your thoughts on that?
I'm going to take the Bills to win that one. I think that they defensively match up better. Again, offensively, I feel that the Bills outplay Baltimore's defense. Lamar, as much as we joke about Cowboys in the playoffs, stack of the playoffs. Lamar in the playoffs that is a factor as well. He's never he's not very good in the playoffs, it seems, and I do feel the occasion would just get too much for them. I would take the Bills to scrape that one.
Okay, and over in the NFC, we are taking on the Eagles.
Yeah, us. I'm actually not afraid of the Eagles.
No. Given what that's not as taking the the blue and the soul tinted specs off of the way the Eagles have been playing the last 5-6 weeks. They're 1-5.
Yeah,
we're 7-1.
Genuinely, the only team that worries me in the playoffs, and this is genuinely, is unfortunately the Whiners. They're the only team that worries me. I wouldn't be bothered about going up against anybody else, and this is kind of where I'm hoping. As much as I said the Cowboys will beat the Packers, I'm kind of hoping the Packers do it, so that they then get to play the Whiners, which gives us another week of not having to play them, so then we can advance, and then we'll play them again in the championship, and kick their asses and go to a Super Bowl that way. That would make it even more sweeter. But that's why my heart wants Green Bay to do this as well.
Just to prolong that, hurt for them.
As the lower seed, they then get the Whiners.
Yep, and that would be even. Would it be sweeter to beat the Whiners for the conference championship in their own backyard than it was for us to beat them at ours? Yeah. Oh, actually, see, just on that, the play that sealed the win was almost a mirror image of the sack on Burrow in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it was scary how similar it was.
It was very similar as well to the one on Garoppolo in the as well.
Yep.
It was it was very much
so sweet. But back to this, so that sets us up with Rams Bills Super Bowl. We try to be unbiased here, Andy. If we come up against Buffalo, if we were to come up against Buffalo in a Super Bowl, can we beat them?
Yeah, I don't see why not. If we've got all the way to a Super Bowl, mate, I'm not, like I say, I'm not scared of playing. Look what we did against Baltimore. We basically took it all the way to overtime, and it was only our special teams let us down and couldn't tackle it. Potentially we lost that game. That could have been a win. So, when you get to the Super Bowl hype, I suppose one thing maybe hanging over Buffalo is the fact they went, 4 times and lost 4 times in a row. So, maybe that demon hangs over their head.
Yeah, maybe.
Again, we're a team that has nothing to lose. We're not supposed to be there. We're not supposed to be here now. So what does it, let's just go for it.
Yeah.
I think what? That would be McVay's mentality of, well, we're here, let's enjoy it and go for it.
Well, that's it. And you know what? That's all the more reason why to say that there is, it doesn't matter if it's a 1% chance, as they're trying to say it is, there is every chance that this Rams team, just as anyone else on a day, could win this. And, on that bombshell.
anything can happen between now and then. Players can pick up an injury.
That's that, yeah.
Anything can happen, and bit of bad luck, a bad bounce, the luck of the playoffs, a missed field goal or something. And how many times have games, especially in playoffs, been decided by a missed PAT or a missed field goal, or
Well, this season it's scary how many games, but that's actually happened in the regular season where there's been so many missed kickers, and we've talked about it so much this year that there's every possibility that carries into the playoffs, and hopefully we can capitalise on that as opposed to other teams capitalising on it against us.
Anything can and does happen. It's the playoffs,
That's the playoffs indeed, mate. But if there is anything else you want to talk about, mates?
The only thing that is just released by Madden, they've updated their ratings. Kyron Williams is now rated as an 84, who's gone up 19 points throughout the season. And Puka Nacua is an 83, who's gone up 16 points throughout the season. How the heck Kyron Williams can be above Puka Nacua, though, I don't quite understand, but there we go.
The rating system is totally flawed, obviously. Good for Williams to be rated that high, but if he's going to be an 84, then Puka's got to be higher than that, surely.
Yeah. Exactly. Puka should be 90 plus. If they could put Justin Jefferson after the end of his rookie season at like a 90, Nacua should be well up there and above him after what he's done this year. But yeah, that's for anybody who plays Madden. They've just released their updated records for the playoffs as to where they think players are.
Just last thing on the playoffs, I'm going to be taking a screenshot of this just so you can see it, Andy, yourself actually on the screen. It will be recorded. What we've predicted, and just so we can, as the playoffs progress, because we're doing a playoff competition as well, folks. Just amongst our community. So we'll obviously be talking about the playoffs in the next few weeks. And anyway, so we'll just keep track of how things are going. So that's our official LA Rams UK prediction, Andy. Should have disclaimed that at first, mate, before we started picking.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. That's fine. I'm quite happy with that.
We're at the top of the tree then, so I'm more than happy with that.
Yep. You heard it here first, guys. We're going to win it all.
Yep, ring number 3 is coming, folks. And on that bombshell, Andy, mate, always been a pleasure to talk to you about the Rams. Looking forward to coming back next week and hopefully talking about us progressing to the divisional round.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week in the NFL. We've not even covered firings and leavings and everything else. So we've
got all that still to come.
Yeah, end of a dynasty for one team.
Yeah, but as we've just said, folks, with the way we've predicted the plus, we're not going to have time to talk about any of that till you're talking mid-February. So we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been John and he's been Andy, folks. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Don't forget to check us out. The podcast streams live on Facebook, X, as well as YouTube. You can listen to us on all our usual channels, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, etc. It's all still there. Don't forget to give us a likes, follow and subscribe, folks. But we'll catch you next week as we will review the wildcard weekend. So thanks a lot, folks. Take care and see you next week.